Welcome to Nature Calls. Thank you for joining us at the Nature Conservancy in Alabama. TNC Alabama is 20 conservationists working together to conserve the land and water for nature and people. I'm Jessica Mitchell, the Philanthropy Associate with TNC Alabama, and Nature Calls is our virtual field trip where we share a new conservation project in Alabama each month on the second Thursday at 3 p.m. Before we start, let me share a few housekeeping items. I want to let you know that we are recording this call and we are muting your microphone. We ask that if you have a comment or a question, that you type it in using the chat function at the bottom of your screen. This will make it easier for our presenter to manage the questions and the answers at the end of the presentation. This program will be approximately 15 minutes long with another 15 minutes for questions and answers at the end. And now I am pleased to introduce Steve Northcutt, Director of Protection with the Nature Conservancy in Alabama, and he is here to tell us about the hidden gem that is our Keel Mountain Preserve in North Alabama. Steve, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share a screen and make sure everything works. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can get things going. Okay, so if everybody can see my screen, I'm going to talk about our Keel Mountain Preserve in Madison County. Before I start, though, if you don't mind letting me kind of give you an overview of how I became familiar with Keel Mountain. In December of 2000, I applied for the job of North Alabama Land Protection Specialist for the Nature Conservancy. And at the time, Kathy Stiles Freeland was the state director, and Wendy Allen was the director of protection. And we had another protection specialist in Grand Bay. We actually had an office in Grand Bay that Larry Ellis worked out of. So they were going to have 3 staff people that doing protection work in Alabama. So I applied for the job in December of 2000, and then they called me back and said, we want you to have a second interview, and we're going to include one of our trustees. So I went to the office. This is when we had our office in Pepper Place in Southside. And so I had an interview with Wendy and Jerry Lanning. I don't know how many of you know Jerry Lanning, but he's a attorney that used to practice in Birmingham and has been the attorney, a long-time trustee for the Nature Conservancy, but was also the attorney for the Freshwater Land Trust, did all their conservation easements. So he was pretty sharp. And so we had a nice chat around the table, and they asked me questions. And so they said, well, we have a test for you. We want to test you on an actual land transaction we're working on right now. And I got a little nervous because I wasn't exactly sure what how this test was going to be. And it happened to be a map of the Keel Mountain Preserve. And I'll show a map to you later and it'll make more sense. But they showed me 2 parcels and it was on a topographic map. So you could see the contours and you could see a little bit about the property. And they said, there's 2 parcels here. We're buying both parcels. What can you tell us about the value that you think each of those parcels might be? And, I thought about it for a second. I said, this may be this is maybe a trick question. And so I said, well, this smaller parcel that's along the road is right next to a house. And I would think it would cost a lot more money to buy that property than this kind of mountainous property behind there. And that was simply all they were looking for. And to just give you an idea, the property that we had to buy at Keel Mountain from the landowner, Sam Michael, and his wife, the little sliver was $10,000 an acre versus, I think it was about $750 an acre for the mountainous property behind there. And that property, what was unique about it is it contained populations of the Morefield's leatherflower. So back in those days, 20 years ago, the Nature Conservancy would buy property really sometimes to protect almost a single species. I know today that seems unbelievable because, our mission is to protect larger landscapes and, it's completely changed from the way things were. Back in the old days, and 20 years ago to me, still, it was a bit different. Many states were buying these, what they called, jewel box preserves, small properties that protected usually plant communities. Because if you see from my slide, it's got a picture of the Morefield leatherflower, which is a flowering clematis vine, and it's in the buttercup family. And, it's only been known to occur. I mean, it was new to nature until 1982. And so named after James Morefield, who found it up in Madison County. And back in those days, one of our trustees, and her name was Susan Weber. She goes by Seuss. I know Lynn knows her very well. And Seuss is known all over the area for being, very interested in conservation. She worked for years at Redstone Arsenal doing inventory for plant species. She was determined, and as a board member, she was determined that we were going to protect some population of Morefield's leatherflower. So this property, and I'll show you a picture of where it is. Well, I'll actually show you a map first. So this is a zoom out map, and let's see if I can do the pointer here. We've got our largest nature preserve up here at Sharp Bingham Mountain. It's 4,000 acres. Jacobs Mountain to the east of that we acquired. It's now part of Skyline. That's 11,400 acres. And then down here at the bottom, you see Roy B. Whitaker Preserve. That is adjacent to Fern Cave National Wildlife Refuge, which that refuge has one of the largest hiberniculums, or areas that has hibernation for the endangered gray bat. And we have people from all over the country that come and stay at our little house on 72, and they do research at Fern Cave. The reason it was called Fern Cave is there used to be a fern that grew there, the American hart's tongue fern, and of course somebody came and dug up all the plants, and they aren't there anymore. But there are several unique and rare bats that are in this cave, and so that's a National Wildlife Refuge, and our Whitaker Preserve is right across the river. That's Paint Rock River, and it's 323 acres. But if you come down here in green, that is what we own of Keel Mountain. The portion in red, I'll show you a map in a minute. It'll make more sense. But I want to give you kind of an idea of where this is located. We only have this one preserve in Madison County. So we've done a lot of protection work in Jackson County, but this is our only nature preserve in Madison County. So let's see if I can go to the next slide. So this is a zoom in on the preserve. And I mentioned to you earlier that when I took that little test, you can see that sliver down there by the road. That was right next to Sam Michael's house. He really didn't want to sell it, but we said we've got to have an area where people can get to the property, park their cars, and do a little trail through there so people can see these plants. That's what we have it there for. We don't want to just buy it and lock it up. And so he did sell us that little piece. And just along the western boundary there, it's hard to see, but that is an area that was owned by the Esslinger family. This area was known, as you can see on the topo map through there, as Esslinger Hollow. And Esslinger Hollow was the only good water source for a small community back there in the 19th century. And the old pipe that came out of the mountains is still there, believe it or not. And Mr. Esslinger, when I was trying to buy part of that property from, he had some fantastic old stories, and people at the time were saying, "You'll never buy any property from Mr. Esslinger. He'll never sell it." And when I met with him, he said, my daughter wants to build a house on this property, but I just like what y'all have done over here with Mr. Michael's property. I'm going to sell it to y'all for it to be part of the nature preserve. So we were lucky to get that piece, and then another larger piece from a fellow that thought he could develop the property, but never could. Now, I'll mention at this point that when we were buying nature preserves, properties, we usually had to just borrow the money through the Land Protection Fund from the Nature Conservancy. And what made it difficult is, you had to pay it back and you had to put 20% endowment on the property. So if the property cost $100,000, you had to raise another $20,000 to go the endowment. So it's a tough climb, and without our philanthropy staff and our trustees, we would have never bought this or many of our other nature preserves. In fact, on this one, I don't think we got any grant money. It wasn't a co-op where we buy property and transfer it to a state or federal agency. It was a nature preserve we were going to own and manage. So, this was hand in hand working with our North Alabama trustees and other trustees that cared about still having nature preserves. And I remember over the 3 transactions we did, we had a lot of interesting meetings with our trustees about this and trying to raise money. So how is the property used today? So this is the property. It shows the trail network. So down at the bottom along the road is the little P shows the parking area, the start of the trail. And a lot of people in North Alabama, mostly Huntsville residents, use this. They could take their family out there. It's not terribly difficult. It's not too long a trail. But basically, you start at the bottom and you walk up to Lost Falls or the Lost Sinks. This area, as many people know, is a karst area. So that means it's full of limestone. Sometimes the caps will be sandstone. It's usually a mix of limestone and sandstone. And so, you've got all these caves, you got all these sinks. And so when you get to the top, at certain times of the year, there's a beautiful waterfall and a deep sink, and that's kind of the end point of the hike. And over the years we've thought about trying to buy more property there to make it a better trail network. And I'll show you here in a minute that we probably will have an opportunity to do something like that. I'm kind of showing you this just to give you an idea that the area is a lot of farmland. There's a good bit of development. But where Keel Mountain is, it's still a nice, intact hickory, oak, limestone boulder forest. And as you can see from this aerial image, I mean, it's still a fully intact mountain. And it does have other unique plants and animals in there besides just the Morefield's leatherflower. Believe it or not, there's a Allegheny wood rat that is known to occur in this area, and it's a very rare animal. One of the lists that we make when we buy property, I remember listing that, and other people were telling me about it. And at the end of this road, Candlestand Circle, that is an area that I'll show you here in just a moment. So that's a view from Candlestand. This is actually a terrible photograph, and I apologize, but it is an area that near this viewing area is 3 caves. And so a lot of interesting aspects to Candlestand. It's always been part of our ultimate goal is to buy Candlestand to kind of round out our preserve, because as you can see, there's a big area down here at what they call Buck Ditch, where Candlestand comes to the southern portion, that would be nice to kind of fill that in. So this is a development that is being done there. There's a developer, his name is Jeff Enfinger, and I know Lynn, very familiar with Jeff. He used to be a board member for the Nature Conservancy. I don't think he was on the board long. He's a busy fella, and I don't think he was really able to go to a lot of our meetings. But Jeff Enfinger reached out to us and said, "Hey, look, I bought Candlestand." And so this area you see up here that says Nature Conservancy, 65.8 acres, we do not own that. That was a property that Jeff talked to us about maybe buying. Over a series of months, Jeff Ware and I met with Jeff Enfinger and some of his staff about the logic of us buying that property. And he just really ended up deciding that that was not what he wanted to sell. He wanted to keep Candle Stand because he wanted to make that part of his trail network. So if you look at where all the lots are, if you see the kind of yellow lines through there, that's a hiking trail that he plans to put in to his development. He's got, as you can see, a buffered green space. Most of that is area that's not developable, but he's going to make a really nice hiking trail with his destination being Candle Stand. And he's told us that he would like to work with the Nature Conservancy in developing a trail network where his people that live there can walk on the Nature Conservancy's property, which is open to the public, but that he would also let our people who park to come see Lost Falls and hike around, they can also hike on his trail network. So you're looking at a huge addition to what the recreational values of this preserve would be once Mr. Enfinger finalizes development, and he will have kind of Candle Stand as a location as a scenic vista for the people that live there. And at some point, he even said there's a chance he might donate that property to us. But you know, Keel Mountain is such a neat place because it does protect this rare plant, and it does give people a place to go, and they realize the Nature Conservancy does things, you know, on a small scale. Then they may look up on our website and see things we do on the large scale, realizing we work in all 50 states in about 73 countries, and it makes them maybe be a donor to our organization or find out more about how they can help us. Sometimes people don't have a lot of money, but they will do work on some of our preserves. And we've had many days where we had people come and join us, and we just cut privet and did work. So I think that having nature preserves is an important aspect of our work. And I hope it never gets to the point where we can't have a few rare preserves that shows off things like, you know, maybe it's just one species of plant. I'll also mention that once we bought Keel Mountain, and I'll go back to this map of Sharp Bingham Mountain Preserve, we found at Sharp Bingham Mountain Preserve an area above one of the caves. So Sharp Bingham Mountain has 63 mapped caves on the property. We found a population of Morefield's leatherflower that was 1,000 times bigger than what we found at Keel Mountain. This plant is known to occur in areas where there's this American smoke tree. American smoke tree is a very hard, kind of gnarly, dark wood that some people get confused that with what they call chitim wood. Chitim wood is a type of wood and tree that is grown in Israel, and it is thought to have been wood that was used to build a Noah's Ark. And there's a lot of fables and other things about the chitim wood. Some people get that confused, but we found all this American smoke tree, and then all of a sudden we had some botanists go up there and they said, "My God, there's so many plants of Morefield's leatherflower that you know, we're finding new populations." At the time Keel Mountain was acquired, you could only find Morefield's leatherflower at a handful of sites in the Huntsville Mountains. Now it's found in Tennessee at a few sites, and there's actually a few sites in Georgia. So even though rare, we felt like at the time buying Keel Mountain was a good investment. And I'll just say one plug, Ed Wilson wrote a book, Life on Earth, and in that book there's a little preface to the book, and he mentions the Nature Conservancy buying property to protect Morefield's leatherflower. And I just thought that was so interesting that someone like him would know something so kind of esoteric as, you know, something like that. But anyway, that's kind of an overview of Keel Mountain. We'll see what happens with this trail network, and I'll keep everybody informed of that. Again, it's a real pretty area, and I invite you to go there and hike it sometime. Morefield's leatherflower blooms in May, and so if you want to go up there and see it, it's a beautiful plant, and we can set up a field trip and take folks up there. that's just a picture of Lost Falls when there was a little bit of water there. And I wish I had more photos to show you of the area, but I think more people will appreciate it if they take a hike up there with us. So I'm just going to make it a short little overview of Keel Mountain, and if anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
It was a great job, Steve. Thank you so much. And you actually did go ahead and answer one of the questions we already had in chat, which was when the flower does bloom. One of the other questions was the trail you were talking about that the Nature Conservancy would work on. About how long would that end up being?
So how much time between now and when they do the development and we would interconnect trails? Is that the question?
I think it was more along the lines of how long will the trail itself be?
Well, the trail's been used for years. I honestly don't know the actual length, but so it's a series of, kind of switchbacks. I think the elevation change maybe 1,000 feet, and you usually can hike it, and kids and even somebody old like me can do it with bad knees. It's something you can do in about 45 minutes if you take a very leisurely pace, and coming down is kind of easy. And Jessica wanted me to tell this one story, which I'll be honest with you was kind of a strange experience. We were hiking Keel Mountain. And we had just a few people with us, and I was coming down and trying to be careful where I stepped. And not 5-6 feet from where I was standing, I looked over, and there was a tiny baby fox. And I'm talking about, I don't know how weeks, but it was so young that when it looked at me, I could tell from the look in its eye that it had never seen a human being before. And it stared at me dead in the eyes and kind of moved his head back and forth like, what is this that I'm looking at? And, he stayed there and didn't move. And then all of a sudden you heard this little chirp in the background, and that mama fox called that baby, and it took off like lightning. I've never seen an animal move so quick, but that was kind of a fun experience. We've seen a few deer and we've seen a few other things, but that experience with the fox was a lot of fun.
Well, we've got a lot of fun comments. People who've encountered that rare species of wood rat that have eaten through wires in houses, and interest in going out with a group to see the leatherflower when it blooms. So hopefully we will be able to do that soon, or figure out a safe way for everyone to do that together. If there are any other questions, you can pop them in the chat now, or we can wrap up close to time. All right, I'm not seeing anything else. Steve, I'm going to steal the screen back from you.
You go ahead.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Steve. You did an amazing job. There was never any doubt that you would, though, of course. Your excitement for what you do with the Nature Conservancy is so infectious. Thank you so much. And if our audience has any additional questions about this particular preserve or any of our conservation projects or any of our work at all, you can always reach out to us at philanthropy.alabama@tnc.org. And finally, no matter what is happening in the world, our work continues uninterrupted. Conservation never stops. So we need your support to keep our conservationists in the field doing their important work for people and for nature. Please donate to the Nature Conservancy in Alabama. It's easy. You can send us a brief email at philanthropy.alabama@tnc.org, and we will reply with a link for online donation or a guide to you for sending your donation via mail or any other method that you would prefer. And thank you in advance for making your tax-deductible financial contribution. And invite someone to join you for the next Nature Calls. Next month, we always do the second Thursday of each month. Just forward them the invitation that you receive, or if you feel comfortable, you can share their email address with us, and we will also send them the invitation. And we look forward to seeing you all next time at our next Nature Calls in February. Thanks so much.
I miss seeing everybody. Thanks for joining us.